Good afternoon to all. Today, in continuation of male reproductive pathology, we are going to discuss about the pathology of testis. Basically, the normal histology and anatomy of testis, understanding the concept of male infertility. So today our learning objectives of this class are to learn about the normal anatomy, histology, normal development of testis, to know about various stages of spermatogenesis, to understand the concept of male infertility. Coming to the anatomy of testis, testis, as all of you know, is a male gonad that is present in the scrotum. The main function of testis is production of sperms and male sexual hormone testosterone. So it helps in preservation of species on the earth and also the sexual development in males. At birth it is 1.5 into 1 centimeters in dimension. As the person grows, the dimension of the testis increases and it reaches 3 centimeters into 2.4 centimeters into 3.5 centimeters with a volume of 12.5 to 19 ml. The size, however, decreases by age thereafter. The location of testis in scrotum is very important for normal sperm production because it presents an optimal temperature of 2 to 3 degrees below the body temperature, that is 35 to 37.4 degrees. The two major mechanisms that the testis adopts in order to maintain consistent levels of sperm production and also to escape the alterations in temperature are: one is presence of pamniform plexus of veins, which through the flow of blood in those veins, the heat of arterial blood is absorbed. The second mechanism is whenever the body temperatures or the external temperatures fall, the crematic muscle reflex will contract and bring the testis closer to the body so that the temperature is maintained. So this is the grosser view of the testis and spermatic cord. So the white globular structure hanging through the spermatic cord under a cover of tunica vaginalis is what we call it as testis. It has an vestigial structure called as appendix of testis. In the spermatic cord we have pamniform plexus of veins along with epididymis. In this epididymis also there is a vestigial part called as appendix of epididymis. So this is the grosser view of the testis. When we come to the arterial supply to the testis, testicular arteries arising from aorta just below the origin of renal arteries. The venous drainage is by the plexus of veins, that is pamniform plexus of veins, that continue as the testicular vein. The right testicular vein directly drains into inferior vena cava, while the left ventricular vein drains into the left renal vein. The lymphatic drainage of testis is towards the para-aortic lymph nodes. The innervation of testis is sympathetic innervation and it is para-aortic ganglia. During the development of testis, one of the important step is descent of testis in the fetal life. So descent of, usually the testis is covered by tunica vaginalis and it is abdominal in position at 7th week. By 12th week, the testis descends into the pelvis. By 28th week or 7th month, it lies close to the deep inguinal ring. Then after 28th week, it takes 3 days to traverse the inguinal canal. Approximately 4 weeks later, that is 32 weeks, the testis enters the scrotum. So during the development stage, that is in the fetal life, there is a process called descent of testis. First the testis is abdominal, then it comes to the pelvis, then it traverses the inguinal canal and finally reaches the scrotum along with a covering around it called as tunica vaginalis. Failure of descent of testis is called as cryptorchidism. When we see the histology of testis, the testis is divided into many compartments by radiating septa originating from the mediastina of testis, or we also call it as rete testis. In that compartments there are about 250 to 400 lobules. Each lobule consists of 2 to 3 seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules carry sperm via tubuli reti into a dilated space within the mediastina testis, which is known as rete testis, which drains into epididymis through 10 to 50 efferent ductules. Efferent ducts in the head of epididymis unite to form single duct in the body and tail, which continues as ductus deferens, or what we call as vas deferens. So in this pictograph you are clearly able to appreciate the whole mount section of the testis. So here you are able to see a mediastinum of testis, from where there are various septa radiating and dividing the testis into compartments. So these compartments have lobules of testis. Each lobule consists of seminiferous tubules. The entire testis has a protective sheath called as tunica albuginea, and outside that we see the ducts of epididymis. Coming to still more high power view, we are able to see to my left side the microscopic view of the testis with outer layer called as tunica albuginea and the testis tissue proper. Testis tissue proper is divided into tubular and intertubular tissue that we commonly called as interstitial tissue of the testis. So the tubular tissue is mainly consists of seminiferous tubules. To my right side there is still more high power view showing the germinal epithelium, which the seminiferous tubules are lined of. The germinal epithelium consists of various stages of spermatogonia, spermatocytes and spermatids. In between the cells there are scattered Sertoli cells within the germinal epithelium, which play a very important role in the progressive development of germinal cells, that is starting from spermatogonia to spermatid or spermatozoa. Outside the tubule there is interstitial tissue. Interstitial tissue consists of Leydig cells. These Leydig cells are the chief source of testosterone and androgens, which are essential for the normal growth and development of testes and also the secondary sexual characters in male. So to sum up, there are three types of cells mainly. One is the spermatogonia or the germ cells, which produce spermatocytes, spermatids and mature spermatozoa. The Sertoli cells, which are large and acts as a supportive cells to the germinal cells. They secrete androgen binding protein, which keeps a high concentration of testosterone in the germinal cell environment. The interstitial cells of Leydig, which have abundant cytoplasm containing lipid granules, and these cells are the main source of testosterone and other androgenic hormones in males. While dealing with normal development of testes, it is important also to deal with various stages of development of male gamete, that is the sperm. So a simple mnemonic that we can remember is GCTZ, various stages of development of the germinal cells. GCTZ, that is spermatogonia, spermatocyte, spermatid and spermatozoa. So first there will be spermatogonia. This gives rise to spermatocyte, this again spermatid and spermatozoa. So this is the sequence of development. The development is a finely crafted thing that is being given to human beings all through these years of evolution process. So when we come to spermatogenesis, in seminiferous tubules there are spermatogonia type A. Type A spermatogonia are non-committed stem cells or undifferentiated stem cells. That means they are still not committed towards the process of spermatogenesis. They are just undifferentiated stem cells. This progresses to spermatogonia type B. Type B spermatogonia are differentiated spermatogonia or committed spermatogonia. Committed means they have been committed towards the process of spermatogenesis. This give rise to our primary spermatocyte or pre-leptotin spermatocyte. This primary spermatocyte undergoes meiotic division 1 through various stages, as you already know, that is leptotin, zygotin, pachatin and diplotin. And by the end of meiosis 1, they give rise to secondary spermatocytes. These secondary spermatocytes undergo meiosis 2 division and finally give rise to spermatids. So the entire process from the spermatogonia to the spermatid, we call it as spermatogenesis. After completion of production of spermatids, initially we get round spermatids. These slowly evolve and ultimately they form elongated spermatids. These spermatids finally give rise to spermatozoa. In this pictograph, you are able to see initially there are round spermatids. Slowly they are developing flagellum. Then slowly they are starting to develop the midpiece consisting of mitochondria. Finally, the head gets evolved with an acrosome. So, the final product, that is an headpiece, a middle piece with mitochondria and a flagellum, that entire thing we call it as mature spermatozoa. So, the process starting from spermatid to mature spermatozoa, we call it as spermiogenesis. After completion and maturation of spermatozoa, these spermatozoa are secreted into the lumen of the seminiferous tubules. So the release of spermatozoa, mature spermatozoa into the lumen of seminiferous tubules by the Sertoli cells is called as spermiation. Initially, these spermatozoa are immotile. They are carried towards the epididymis by the testicular fluid, and there is peristaltic contraction to favor the movement of the spermatozoa. The mature spermatozoa are still not fit for fertilization. They have a glycoprotein coat over the acrosome, which renders them unfit for fertilization. Only after a process called capacitation, that is removal of that protective coat of glycoprotein with the help of fertilization promoting peptide secreted by the prostatic fluid, and the presence of heparin in the female reproductive tract, removes this glycoprotein coat and makes it conducive for fertilization. So here it is worth mentioning the normal structure of a sperm. So a normal sperm consists of a head and a tail. Head, what we call, consists of acrosome and a nucleus, and there is a middle piece following the head, which is connected to the head by a connecting piece. The mid piece consists of mitochondrial sheath. This middle piece is followed by the flagellum, which has a projectile motion and helps in the normal motility of the sperm. So coming to the core concept is understanding the concept of male infertility. So as you all know, nowadays, due to various lifestyle modifications stress, occupational hazards, substance abuses, the incidence of male infertility is also increasing, and it is becoming one of the common outpatient walk-in for the Department of Andrology. So, by infertility we mean is inability to conceive after 1 year of coital activity with the same sexual partner without contraception. That is, after 1 year of normal coital activity also without using any contraception, there is a failure of conception. The causes of infertility are divided into pre-testicular, testicular and post-testicular. And the problem statement of infertility is about 8 to 12% of worldwide couples are facing this problem of infertility. And in cause of infertility, both male and female are equally responsible. Male infertility amounting about 40 to 50% in these cases. And throughout the world, about 2% of men exhibit suboptimal parameters of sperm production. So, coming to the causes of male infertility, they are divided into pre-testicular, testicular and post-testicular. The pre-testicular causes are one of the main causes is the hormonal causes and the causes of hyperprolactinemia. So these are the causes related to our central axis, that is hypothalamo-pituitary axis. When we come to testicular causes, these are the causes localized to the testis. So there are various causes like undescended testis, that is cryptorchidism, localized elevation of temperature, that is varicocele, various injuries, either it may be physical injury, radiational injury or drug induced injury to the testis. Then there are genetic causes like Y chromosome microdeletions, Klinefelter syndrome, Sertoli cell failure syndrome. There are also immunological reasons like anti-sperm antibodies. Coming to post-testicular causes, these are the causes usually of blockade to the flow of the seminal fluid, that is there is ejaculatory duct obstruction or congenitally bilateral absence of vas deferens, or there can be some retrograde ejaculation, or there is a problem of ejaculation itself due to neurological disturbance, or there is some obstructive pathology obstructing the flow of the seminal fluid. So in evaluating the patient of infertility, history plays an important role. So we have to thoroughly evaluate the history of the patient. So when a patient is evaluated, we usually evaluate in the history the age of both the partners, sexual development of the patient from childhood to puberty, whether there are any cryptorchidisms, hypospadiasis, any history of testicular torsion or history of mumps, or the age of puberty. Also we evaluate the patients having any habits of substance abuse or their sexual practices are hindering the normal fertilization activity, or there is any serious underlying illness like cancer, spinal cord injury, or severe diabetes, or some neurological disturbance. We also evaluate whether the problem of infertility is running in the families. So discussing through the various causes of male infertility, here it is worth mentioning three causes of male infertility, that is undescended testis or cryptorchidism, testicular atrophy, and inflammatory condition of testis called as architis. So as I already said initially, during the course of development of testis, there is a process called as descent of testis. So failure of descent of testis, what we call it as cryptorchidism. So the descent of testis occurs in two harmonically distinct phases. The first transabdominal phase, that is controlled by hormone called Mullerian inhibiting substance. The second is inguinoscrotal phase, mediated by androgen induced release of calcitonin gene related peptide. This condition is mostly unilateral, but it is bilateral in 25% of cases. When we see the gross appearance of undescended testis, usually it is smaller than the normal and it appears as fibrotic and firm. On cut section it is pale white. When we see the microscopic features of undescended testis, the chief features are failure of appreciation of normal regular maturation of various stages of germ cells, and the basement membrane of the seminiferous tubules becomes thickened and hyalinized. When we come to the clinical features of undescended testis, there is an increased incidence of infertility and germ cell neoplasms in these cases. And the degree of infertility depends upon whether the undescended testis is unilateral or bilateral. Unilateral undescended testis presents as oligospermia, that is sperm count less than 15 to 20 million per ml. Bilateral cryptorchidism has presentation of azoospermia and infertility. Coming to the inflammatory condition of testis, it's called as architis. Architis is basically classified as non-specific architis and specific architis. Non-specific architis is usually associated with epididymis inflammation. So combinedly we call it as epididymoarchitis. It's caused by Chlamydia trachomatis, Neisseria gonorrhoeae, E. coli or Pseudomonas. Microscopically, the testicular tissue is infiltrated by neutrophils, macrophages and lymphocytes. Coming to specific types of architis, they are autoimmune architis, syphilitic architis, tubercular architis and mumps related architis. When we see atrophy of testis, testicular atrophy is caused by several reasons. One, due to aging. Next is due to inflammatory conditions affecting the testis, that is architis. Other is failure of descent of testis. The next is hormonal testicular atrophy. Then malnutrition related testicular atrophy, irradiation induced injury that is leading to testicular atrophy, and finally genetic causes that is leading to testicular atrophy, that is Klinefelter syndrome. So again, continuing with our evaluation of patient of infertility, we have seen in the previous slides the evaluation of patient through history. Then we come to physical examination. In physical examination, we should mainly evaluate the development of secondary sexual characters, whether there may be any presence of gynecomastia or there are any major surgeries in the abdomen or inguinal region. Then the external genital examination of the patient to observe penis and the scrotum, and whether the testes are in situ or they are absent, or any scrotal pathologies like varicocele are there. So we have to thoroughly evaluate physically the patient to rule out various reasons of infertility. Coming to laboratory evaluation of male infertility, it can be divided as imaging studies, mainly to rule out anatomical and development anomalies, biochemical evaluation, where we come across hormonal evaluation of the patient, especially the FSH, testosterone and prolactin. Then pathological evaluation. So in pathology, we evaluate the seminal fluid. So semen analysis is one of the important investigation in investigating the male infertility, and also testicular biopsy to see whether there is normal stages of germinal cell development. Then genetic evaluation to rule out any congenital syndromes. Then immunological evaluation to rule out anti-sperm antibodies. So when we see hormonal assay, usually 4 hormones, that is FSH, luteinizing hormone and testosterone, prolactin are evaluated in the case of male infertility. So when they are evaluated, they give broadly differential diagnosis of 4 entities, that is hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism, that is there is a deficiency of gonadotrophic hormones which is leading to hypogonadism. There is abnormal spermatogenesis. So here the maturation of germinal cells has an abnormality. Then there is testicular failure, that is even though there is a presence of normal gonadotrophins, there is a failure of testicular level, and there is a condition called as prolactinoma where this hypersecretion of prolactin. So these 4 chief differential diagnoses are considered, and they are evaluated by evaluating 4 different hormones, that is FSH, luteinizing hormone, testosterone and prolactin. So as I already said, one of the important investigation in evaluation of a patient of male infertility is semen analysis. So we have WHO laid down reference values when evaluating the quality of semen, that is the volume, the pH, the sperm concentration per ml, total sperm count, motility of the sperms, progressive motility, vitality of sperms, normal morphology of sperms, and the concentration of leukocytes in the semen. All these have a definite set of values, and we call the study normal when all these parameters are satisfied. When the count is low, we call it as oligospermia. When there are no sperms, we call it as azoospermia. When there is abnormal sperms, we call it as tetrazoospermia. When there is lack of motility, we call it as asthenozoospermia. When there is lack of motility along with low count, we call it as oligoasthenozoospermia. So finally, after evaluating the patient through history, physical examination, laboratory evaluation, in majority of cases of infertility, patient counseling plays a very important role. The counseling may be related to substance abuse or lifestyle modifications, or counseling regarding occupational hazards, or counseling regarding the sexual practices. So counseling plays a very important role in the final management protocol of male infertility. So this ends our discussion of part 1 of testicular pathology, where we have importantly discussed about the histology of normal testis, normal development of testis, and descent of testis, various stages of maturation of germ cells, then finally how to deal with the patient of male infertility. In our next part, we are going to deal about the neoplastic pathology of testis. Thank you.